Welcome back to the Hometown Hustle, you guys. This is episode 14. Super excited about this episode because this is the first time that we are going to talk specifically about the real estate industry in general, in hopes that we can help educate the public about what's going on in the real estate industry, and answer questions and any of that kind of stuff. And I brought on to this episode one of my favorite people in the real estate industry in Grants Pass, and this is Vanessa Blacksmith. She is a title and escrow officer with First American Title Company, and she's awesome. I've worked with you now for almost 8 years and developed a great relationship with you, and I respect the hell out of you, and we'll talk about why. But I just wanted to thank you. So you're the first real estate related guest that we've had, and so thank you for coming.
Glad to be here.
Glad to be here. Yeah, this is awesome. So,
and I won't take offense to the first real estate related person that's been on here. But
that's okay. All right. To be fair, some-ish. All right, that's all right. Let's back it up here. Clearly, I've had too much of my Moscow Mule already. Yeah.
Just kidding. Having it up.
All right. Fair. So you're the second real estate person. So Dan was on the podcast. He was the third guest we ever had.
Training wheels at that time. It wasn't a real thing.
It was very much training wheels. We were still learning a lot. But it wasn't specifically to talk about real estate. It was more to talk about Dan and who he is as a person and all that kind of stuff. So, but no, I want to get into the real estate stuff, and the goal of this, and the reason why I'm doing it, is this because I think that there's a lot of consumers out there that have misconceptions about what things are and all that kind of stuff. And I also think that there's real estate brokers out there who need a little extra help. And so if we can provide some sort of platform where people can learn, both consumers and other real estate brokers, and hopefully me, I want to learn too. I'm not saying that I'm above everybody else here. This is a learning process for all of us, but this is the point of this, is to kind of talk about different issues that are going on in the industry, misconceptions, tell funny stories about real estate, and just kind of people can get light about it, and that's it. So,
all right.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
Number 2 real estate guest ever.
I'll take it.
Too funny.
Yeah. All right. So, first question: you were born in Porterville, and I know where Porterville is, and you and me might be the only people that know where Porterville is.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Porterville is literally out in the middle of nowhere.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
San Joaquin Valley. It's probably about 45 minutes south of Fresno.
Okay.
Just out in the middle of.
Yep.
In the fields. Yep. Orange groves, tomato plants. Yep.
Yep.
Pretty small population.
It was at the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a pretty small town back when I grew up there. But yeah.
I'm sure it's grown.
Oh yeah.
Lots of flat land out there.
Yes, it's flat. Yes, I know. The first time you go there, you're like, "Where's the mountains? Where's the trees?" It's just flat agricultural land. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I played baseball against Porterville Community College. So,
really?
Yeah. So that's the only reason I know Porterville. And then I actually, there was a kid on my team who was from Porterville too.
Oh, really?
His name was Truett Harden. Is the first Truett I've ever met, the last Truett I've ever met. But
sounds like a detective.
It sounds like a detective. Yeah, Truett was a good guy. We were roommates for a little while. So yeah, but he was from Porterville.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you, and then the other fun thing about you and I is that we both have lived a good length of our time, or of our life, in Monterey, California.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when did you move down there?
We moved down there in about 93.
Okay.
1993, and we lived down there for probably about 10 years.
Why'd you move there?
We moved there because at the time, Grants Pass was very, very small, not where it's at today. Mm-hmm. And so to get any type of job experience, you had to know somebody in this town. You had to know somebody or be related to get a job at any type of good paying job. Mm-hmm. Even getting, like when we were in high school, even getting like a job at like Abby's or McDonald's or like a fast food place, they didn't have coffee shops back then. You had to know somebody. You didn't just walk in, hey, I want a job like right now. You had to know somebody. I mean, it took me, probably like a good 6 months to get on. And when you got that job, I mean, you were like elated. You had a job. So we left the town just to kind of, we're like, well, we need to get out. We need to see the world. And so we went down there to get job experience and just kind of see what else is out there. Plus, it's Monterey. So
Yeah.
we had the opportunity to live there pretty much rent free for probably about 10 years. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a beautiful place to live.
it's absolutely beautiful.
It's
yeah.
wild how overpopulated it is now.
Yeah.
When I was there, it was just like this little beach town, you know, the wharf and all that kind of stuff. People come there for this, you know, in the summer for whatever. They come there to get their clam chowder at the fish hopper or whatever.
All right. Yeah.
But it was like, it's wild now. It's just like, you can't go anywhere without like shoulder to shoulder with people. It's nuts.
Yeah.
So this is going to lead into a little bit of a question about your family. Was that you and Rusty that moved down during that time frame, or were you?
Yeah. Rusty and I moved down there. So my dad actually grew up there. My grandfather was a marine biologist at the Hopkins Marine Station, and my grandmother was a school teacher. So my dad grew up down there, and so they had a house down there, and so we thought, well, you know, we might as well get out and, you know, start somewhere and see if we can get some job experience. So it worked well. It worked out well for us.
You worked at a bank there? Is that right?
Worked at a credit union.
Okay.
Monterey Credit Union. Started as a file clerk. Worked my way up. I was a DMV clerk. I did loan servicing, loan receptionist, consumer loan officer. Then they moved me into collections. That was a lot of growth. Boy, I tell you, there's some stories there.
Yeah.
And then when I had my first child, then they moved me into the real estate. I was a real estate processor for about 6 months. Yeah. And then 9/11 hit, and my husband's job was basically, he just worked on, he was a appraiser. He was an adjustment appraiser, so he would travel out to people's homes and adjust car damage. After 9/11, I don't know, for some reason, it's just like
Nobody got in car accidents anymore?
Yeah, it was like nobody was making claims. It was strange. And so, you know, just we kind of were looking at the economy, housing market down there at that point was doing what it is doing here now for the past few years. It's just like, it just took off. And if you didn't get in, it would be hard for you, like with a, you know, young family,
right,
you know, medium income, to get in the housing market. And so we decided to move back. So, yeah.
Yeah, it did blow up. That's when I was in high school. So I started high school in 2000. And you moved in 2003, I think, right?
Yeah, we moved back here in 2003. Yeah.
No, I just remember like a lot of changes happened down there when in that time frame.
Right.
Right. It just.
Yeah. Well, 9/11, you know, you're down there, you have the Defense Language Institute, you've got all kinds of military, Naval Postgraduate School, you've got all kinds of, you know, so when 9/11 hit, being there, I mean, it was huge. I mean, you have all these military guys down there, and then, you know, they just shut everything down. So, yeah, it was interesting. So, but.
Yeah, I remember you used to be able to, like, go onto the Presidio and, like, play out in their fields, and, like, you could just go in and out, like, no armed guards or anything like that, and then they shut it down. Like, you couldn't get even anywhere near it.
Oh yeah, you used to cut through. You could drive through. You could cut through the peninsula. You could get through places faster. And then after that, they shut it down. You were not. Yeah.
We used to live on Franklin Street, so that was like a couple streets over from the Presidio. So
right.
yeah, that was weird. So
Yep.
yeah, so you moved back here in 2003, and then did you immediately get a job at First American Title?
No, that's an interesting story. So again, saying when you got out of high school, it was hard to get a job here unless you knew someone. So when we moved back, I had my resume. I had 10 years at the credit union. I had applied at a couple of the local credit unions, but they weren't hiring. Road Credit Union at the time didn't have any offices over here in Grants Pass, but they had plans to open an office in Grants Pass, you know, within like a year or two. So when I applied, I mean, they had all the same processing systems. I would have stepped right in and started off, but I didn't want to commute over to Medford at that time. And so anyway, that didn't work out. So I went to a temp agency. I went to a job fair, a temp agency, left my resume. And so they started sending my resume out to different offices. And it got sent to Home Valley Bank. And one of the employees there knew me. She was one of my softball coaches. And so she sent my resume to the title company.
Love Home Valley Bank.
Yeah.
I have a story about Home Valley Bank. We'll get back to that later. Go ahead.
And so what's funny about that is that she sent my resume in and I got an interview, and then I got in. They hired me and I got in. But I had originally, when I was looking for a job, I had walked into the front desk with my resume, tried to hand it to the receptionist. I'm sorry, we're not hiring right now.
Oh, my goodness.
Shooed me out the door. Wouldn't even take it. Well, can I just leave it? No, I'm sorry. We're not hiring.
So it is about who you know.
It is about who you know. I mean, well, and it's not anymore, but back then it was just such a small town. Wow. I mean, if you had to know somebody, and so I knew somebody and I got the in.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what title company was that back then?
Josephine County Title.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Josephine County Title. So Jim DeCourcy, when I started, at that time, he had arrangements to sell it to First American, but they hadn't done the official changeover quite yet. So I started at Josephine County Title was about a year, and then they officially sold out to First American. So
Yeah, crazy.
yeah,
And then so you've been doing that for 20 years now, is that right?
20 years.
Yeah. Is that mind-blowing to you, or?
It is. It's hard to say it out loud. It is. Yep. It doesn't seem like 20 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah. I think it shows that not your age.
Here,
Wow.
you have another drink.
Foot in mouth here. That's not what I
no
meant.
worries.
Experience.
No, in
the
your
way that you
experience.
communicate.
Yeah.
And quality, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, First American Title does have really good escrow officers. Like, everybody in that building does a really good job. The one thing that I've appreciated about you is how you communicate. And maybe it's just because we communicate in the same, I mean, I'm sure that's probably what has a lot to do with it. And I like the way that you communicate, but it's very clear. It's very concise. It just, when people ask you questions, it just comes out very easily. And I like that. If there's people fumbling over their words, it becomes hard to trust them because they're not confident in what they're saying, which just tells me that they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
So, and that's for me anyway, that's just one of the things that I've appreciated about you since getting to know you. So,
Well, one of the things I appreciate is you also communicate good, bad, or indifferent. A lot of people can communicate when it's always good news. Like, that's easy. Everybody's looking for the layup, the easy one. But you'll jump in even when it's not probably the most opportune time and still communicate what needs to be done or how it needs to be done, regardless of whether people want to hear it or not. I think that's a big reason of why I utilize you, for escrows. And it just makes such a big difference. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Well, I've just learned through experience, through doing the job. And back in the day, they used, people would throw, oh, it's escrow, throw escrow under the bus type of stuff. And, in escrow, people, oh, you know what I mean, just kind of, fluff over it. Oh, there's a problem, it's fine. But I've learned, if you're just honest and you're upfront and you know what, hey, potential problem, or hey, it's a problem, you can address it. And everybody, you want to overpromise, underdeliver, or what is it? Wait, I said that wrong. Underpromise, over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That type of scenario.
Right.
And just being honest. I mean, that's what I've learned just through experience working the job. It's like, I just started, like you said, good, bad, or the ugly. You know what I mean? I'm just honest. I'm going to call up those realtors. Yeah, you just rip off the Band-Aid, and it is what it is. And so that's my style. And so, it's like you say, reading people and like, how well, you like my communicative style, it clicks with some people, and some people, not so much. Everybody communicates a little bit differently. Yeah. So, but.
You also make it very clear and easy to understand. Like, I know when I first started, I didn't know the language. It was all Greek. And every time I was sitting at your table, it was very, very clear. Like, I knew what was going on. I felt like I understood it. And there was no confusion at all, which was really nice, because that's not quite true to all the escrow tables I've sat at, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's confidence too. Like, good, bad, or indifferent, like you're saying. Like, if you can express confidence, like, hey, this is what it is, blah, 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 blah. If it's good, it's bad. The people that are sitting on the other side of the table, they can be like, okay, this guy's got it, or Vanessa's got it, or Robin's or Dan's got it. Like, it's that confidence that you display when you talk about it. No matter the circumstance, people feel that, and they feel better about it, and they can trust you better that way. So
Yeah, I think when people feel that they're not confident in the other individual, and then they start to get nerves, and that fear starts embedding in them. So having the ability to convey trust to that individual keeps them from being fearful and then, running to another direction, possibly harming their transaction in some cases, right? Which that happens quite often. But getting them to say, hey, this is where we're at, but we have a resolution, or we have a solution, is paramount on them not sabotaging their next move as a consumer. Because I think that's the knee-jerk reaction, is if somebody doesn't give them the answer or the direction, or just simply stay put while we figure it out, like, that means a lot. If you could tell somebody to stay put, like, and they trust you and believe you, they'll let you figure it out. Otherwise, they are literally burning bridges on the backside.
Yep.
It's emotion. I mean, it's basically, it's not, that's that transference of emotion. And when when you're realistic with people, this is what it is. They know that you're not covering, it's like you said, it's just building trust. I want you to trust me. This is what it is. This is what happened. This is what isn't going to happen. This is how we're going to deal with it. Or these are the options. Right. Which option do you want to take? It's just addressing the problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something that Nancy taught me that I will try to never let go. Like that. Yeah. I'm a very emotional person to begin with. Like I get emotional pretty easily. Shut up, Robin. I can see the look on your face.
I did it first.
You did it first? Yeah. But anybody who knows me knows that I'm super emotional, but that is not our job. Our job is not to get up to the same level as our clients. They're making one of the biggest transactions they've ever made in their life, and they're emotional about it, and they have every right to be.
Right.
Our job is to keep them level and keep them thinking clearly, or to think clearly for them, so they can make sound decisions. Right. Because when people are emotional, there's science, and I don't know all the science behind it, but when you can stay out of that emotional side of your brain and you can stay into, I can't really remember what it's called, but if you can stay into that where you're staying emotional and you're able to make decisions, you're so much better. And that's our job.
Right.
Right. As real estate professionals, they look to us for that.
Right.
But moreover, you. So can you explain what a neutral third party actually means for people? Because I mean, that's very difficult to be what your job is, to be literally a neutral third party.
Correct. Yeah. So
what is title and escrow? That is, let's get into that.
The big question.
Yeah.
So what's really funny is that, you say, I'm an escrow officer. People ask, what do you do for a living? I'm an escrow officer. Oh, what are rates today? That's not what I do, but you know what I mean? It's, so, but neutral third party. So we're the ones that we hold all the funds. We make sure that the buyer gets clear title. We just make sure that, the funds don't get released until, the buyer can get clear title. And we are just, like the middle guy. We make sure that all of the realtors, the lenders, all the funds, seller, buyers, we make sure that everything comes together how it's supposed to come together to close the transaction.
And for clarification, how it comes together is the written instructions that are provided to you guys. I think sometimes people think that you guys can work autonomously, and it's not. It's based on all the verbiage that all those parties have presented to you guys. It's your job to file through and make sure it's done according to that.
Right. Correct. Yep. To make sure that, everybody's protected, that we followed all of the written instructions, and that we record the correct documents, and, just ensure that everybody has, clear title to the property and all the funds get sent to the proper place, pay all the invoices, all the bills, make sure that the lenders get all the documentation that they need. Just kind of like we make sure that everybody involved in the transaction, everything gets taken care of.
Yeah. Yep. In some states, title and escrow are separate. Differentiate the two, just for the people who aren't aware.
So title insurance basically insures title to your home. So when you buy a home, you want to make sure that the person that you're buying it from was the legal owner on the property, and that if they had any loans or liens against the property, you want to make sure that all those are paid off and cleared before you come into title. So the title report also gives you information on the property that you're buying. So any easements of record, homeowners association, CC&Rs if you're going to do future development or improve your home, it has everything that's disclosed what you can and can't do with the property. So we give you all of that information up front, and then when we close, that insurance policy protects you for as long as you own your home as an owner. That if there is some lien that was missed or something that was missed that could hinder clear title to you, that's what your insurance steps in and takes care of. If there's something that we missed, you make sure that it doesn't hinder, your ownership of the home. Right. Yeah.
So when I'm explaining the title insurance or the preliminary title report to the clients when we're writing offers, they often ask, like, what is that for? And what I tell them is very not word for word, because you're clearly the expert, but I'll explain it similar to that. And then I'll say, I'll give you an example. So like, if a contractor replaces the roof on the house before the people put their house on the market, and they don't pay the bill, and then they put the house on the market and it sells and it closes and they never paid their bill, the contractor is going to file a lien on that house because it's the only way for him to collect the money. Title insurance will protect you because they will pay for that lien or make sure that gets taken care of and that you don't have to take care of it.
And go after that previous seller.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. One
Yes.
way or the other.
Yes.
That's accurate, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's probably the easiest way to explain it. There's obviously a lot of other circumstances in which title insurance is important. But that's kind of how I explain it. I just want to make sure that I'm on the same page. So.
Good job. It's a good analogy.
Yeah. Because if I'm not right, I've been fluffing people for 7.5 years now. So. Yes. Yes, Vanessa. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
Yes.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And then escrow on the other side of title does everything else.
So the title side, we issue title insurance. So it's just kind of, like a homeowner's insurance policy, protects you, contents, fire, damage, whatever. So title insurance, again, just protects that you have clear title to your home. And then lender's title insurance just protects the lender that, that they're in the lien position, that when they close, that, if they non-payment, then that's their recourse, is that, okay, the first lender in line to, foreclose on the home.
So explain that a little bit, Dan, on why there's a lender's title policy. Just elaborate a little bit.
To make sure us as the lender, so if you take a look at it as people standing in line, that we are the first person in that line, no matter who is behind us, is irrelevant, that we can actually have the right to foreclose on that property should that individual default on that loan.
Because liens are paid in accordance of when they were filed, correct?
That is correct.
With the exception of
taxes.
property taxes.
Yeah, taxes win. They
Uncle
take
Sam
all.
always gets there.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so it's just really important that they provide us clear title so we know that we're that first person in, so we can default. Or if they default on it, we have the ability to foreclose, and somebody else can't take the funds or foreclose on that house before we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And
Very good. Very good explanation.
Well, yeah.
22 years.
20
Hope I bring something to the table.
Yeah. And so, like, just for people who are watching too, so like the easiest way for me to explain escrow as the neutral third party also, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here.
Okay.
So like earnest money, right? So escrow typically holds earnest money unless somebody requests for it to be like one of the buyer or the seller people.
Can we talk about earnest money before just what earnest money is before we
Sure.
go to the
Yeah,
next one?
absolutely. Yeah. Go for it, Doyle.
No, I was like somebody
Talking to
else
that
can-
mic, buddy.
Somebody else can, but when we talk about earnest money, so earnest money is the good faith funds that are put into a contract when the contract is accepted to tell the seller that they in good faith plan on purchasing their home. It's a fraction, a percentage of whatever that purchase price is.
Yeah, which typically we use 1% of the purchase price. Sometimes in the lower end, it's $1,000. I've seen people do $500 before. I actually had this client like offer up $10,000 in earnest money, and the seller's like, I don't care about $10,000 in earnest money. And so the buyer came back and said, fine, I'll just give you $1 for earnest money then. And he was like, whoa.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So earnest money's there. It's available for in case the buyer terminates that's not a contractual reason. So how I explain this is we get 2 days from close of escrow. They've released all their contingencies. They decide, I don't want to buy the house anymore for whatever reason that's not contractual, and they pull out of the transaction. Technically, that money is supposed to go to the seller according to the contract. However, because what I'm getting at is because escrow is the neutral third party and they hold on to those funds, escrow cannot release those funds to either party without written instructions from the buyer and the seller.
Yeah, I just learned that.
No, you didn't. You've known that, but you've dealt with it. Yeah.
I just experienced that.
Yes.
Yeah. But it did. It worked out. It was fine.
It worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It worked out.
It can get tricky sometimes. So
So the contract is between a seller and a buyer, but the contract is not doesn't include First American Title. So as Dan pointed out earlier, everything that title and escrow does has to be with a direct written instruction. So the contract is a contract between seller and buyer. First American is not involved. So when you deposit funds in our office, we have to have a written mutual instruction from all parties instructing us on what we are to do with the funds. So a lot of people, it's like, oh, well, we wrote in there that it's non-refundable. And I said, and you're absolutely correct. I said, however, I have to have a written instruction from all parties instructing me on how to disperse it.
right.
Yeah.
So if that seller doesn't sign that form, and the buyers, even if it's non-refundable, they
Yes.
gotta go figure it out elsewhere. with a mediator, an arbitrator, something like that.
Right.
it's
So
not
we
good.
just hold
Not
on.
good.
Yeah. We hold on to it, and we do our best efforts to try to, get
Of course.
the mutual instructions. But
Yeah.
there are some cases where,
What's the longest you guys have ever held earnest money for?
well, and I know that it's changed. I think that it's changed, but we used to hold funds for up to 3 years. And then eventually, if there are, so we do our best efforts to try to get
Yeah.
sellers and buyers to agree. But if they don't, then it's sheeted to the state of Oregon, and then the state of Oregon, like the unclaimed property.
Oh, that's the ultimate buyer. Screw you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell
And
people the state fills potholes with it.
Yeah. And some people will hold out. Some people will be like, they're not getting it. So it's just, it's a matter of principle. And so, well, if the state gets it, the state gets it. It's like, well, okay,
Yeah.
that's your choice.
For all the people that we're scaring the shit out of right now about earnest money, it's very rare that it actually
Very
happens.
rare.
Yeah,
It's
very
like
rare.
maybe
Yeah.
1% of the transactions that I see that.
Yeah.
Typically, so Robin, you could probably go into, because it sounds like you have experience recently from it, but on a termination, it says who's supposed to get it on that termination, and it's up to all parties to sign, but technically it's directive.
Well, I
on
mean,
that,
they have
right?
to sign the termination. I mean, if they don't sign the termination, then
Then the state gets
Yeah.
the money.
Then
After a
this-
certain period
Well,
of time,
yeah.
yeah.
Right.
it
this
goes to
particular
the
one
state.
was
Yeah.
a buyer that was representing themselves. So they didn't have an agent, and they just decided to quit communication. And it was closing day, and they just disappeared.
yeah. Well, they disappeared long before closing.
It became
We
very
just discovered it on
evident.
closing day. Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, earnest money's interesting. So, what do you think is the wildest escrow story that you've come across in your 20 years of
Or signing.
yeah
Story, signing.
yeah, it could be anything.
So it was probably last year around Christmas time that there was a contract. Seller was going to sell to this young family, and for some reason or another, the seller was going through a divorce, and so the wife signed off, and then the husband was supposed to come in and sign, refused to sign. I'm not selling.
Yeah.
So with an escrow, so if you have, you're in a contract. So if you sign the contract, I mean, the buyers had loan docs. They were supposed to come in and sign. And so the agents were like, well, he's refusing to come in and sign. I can't get him in to come in and sign. And so, the buyer's agent was like, well, what do we do? I said, well, we still continue the transaction. Your buyers need to come in. They deposit funds. They show that, hey, we're still committed. You're in a contract. This is what you do. So you bring in your funds, you come in and sign. So the young couple comes in and signs. So they're living in an RV, expecting to be in their home before Christmas with their 2 young children, probably under the age of 5. And seller just refuses. He will not sign. So the buyers come in and sign, and there's a motion. So again, when you're just, you're there. It's like I said, you just have to sign. You never know what's going to happen. He may agree to come in and sign. So close of escrow day came. Buyers performed. Lender was ready to fund. Still, seller, nope, I am not selling. I don't have anywhere to go. I am not selling. So buyers were like, their hands were tied. They're like, well, what do we do? So I said, well, at this point, you talk to an attorney, and you litigate it. You take it to the court, and you have a legally signed contract, so you pursue it. So after that, I don't remember the transaction. I think I was on vacation. But I never really followed up with it to find out what had happened. I think it had eventually closed. Well, I was at a golf tournament this summer, and I ran into the buyer. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, how are you? You know what I mean? He goes, yeah, you were the one that signed us on the house, remember? And I was like going, oh, my gosh, how did that turn out? So there was a lot of emotions. Both sides of the buyers were not happy. But he said, you know what? In the end, he said, we eventually closed. He said, we eventually sat down and talked to him. He was an older gentleman. Didn't have anywhere to go, so it was just all this emotion. And he said we got to know him, and we worked it out. We're in the home, and he goes, you know what? After all of that negative emotion, he said we got to know him. We still talk to him. We figured it out, and it closed.
Wow.
And he said, you know what? And it was just like it was just a great story. Like you follow up with it. And he said, all in the end, it all worked out the way it was supposed to work out.
Yeah.
We got into the house. They helped him find a new place, and then it closed.
The buyers helped him find a new place.
Well, I don't know if but it
worked
for
out,
some
right.
for some reason they came up to an agreement that worked for everybody, and
Yeah.
it happened.
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah.
Do you remember, I think it was maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago, you weren't the escrow officer. It was in a different deal in your office, or a different escrow officer in your office. I'll just tell the whole story. So I get this listing, this person I know from the community, and I do a market analysis for her. And so it's I thought maybe we could get 500 or something for it, and she said, just typically like a lot of sellers do, like, well, I want to shoot for, no, I don't, maybe that's not how it worked out. Well, I said, I think we can get 500 for it. And, and she's like, well, let's try and push it up a little bit and see what happens, and she wasn't too strong on it, but we ended up listing it for like 515. And, before we even get it on the market, she was asking me, she's like, and I typically like advise my client, I'll tell them what to do, but I advise my clients, like, you probably shouldn't tell like your friends and things like that, and like what you're listing your house for, because, they have people that come, they have, your friend will say, oh, I want to buy the house. And then you don't have the opportunity. You feel bad because you don't have the opportunity to put it on the market. And so it's better to just like leave it alone and all, and just like put the house on the market and just let it happen, especially this, I think was late in 2020 or 2021, in that whole rush of everything. I was like, it's best, if you want to get your best price and your best terms, it's better to just put it on the market and not have any like side deals. She's like, all right, well, I really feel like I need to tell my group of friends. So she tells her group of friends that she's putting her house on the market, and her friend's like, oh, of course, I always loved your house,
Yeah.
Can I come and look at it?
Yeah.
And, it's been a while since I've been in there. And she's like, I've been thinking of moving, I might be interested. And so she calls me and she says, this person wants to come look at my house and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, if you want to show her to her, that's fine, but she should call her real estate broker if she has one, and you should tell her that we're going to put it on the market, and that you're not going to be accepting any deals ahead of time. And she's like, okay, well, that's reasonable. I want that also. She wanted to put it on the market and see what happens. She didn't want to like favor her friend or do any of that kind of stuff, which is, I'm like, great, you're doing good. And so sure enough, her friend calls her real estate broker. They come over and look at the house. And like 2 days before putting it on the MLS, like I think they came and saw it the same day we got pictures. She writes an offer of $15,000 over asking, cash, close in 2 weeks, with 90 days possession after close of escrow, for free. Like,
that's a sweet deal.
Yeah, waiving the inspection, like the whole thing. Like she told her, like, I'm going to give you everything that you want and more. I just want to make sure that I get this house. I really like it, and you're my friend, and I want you to have time to locate your next property. She knew that she was moving into a different area and that they still had to find a place. And she ended up writing it, and the seller didn't want to accept it. And because of what I told her, like, you really should be on the market. And so she's like, what do you think? And I'm like, well,
That's a really good deal.
That's a really good deal.
Everything I said before, throw it out. It was all garbage.
Insert foot in mouth again, Daniel. Good job. Because that kind of stuff like never happens, right? Especially 90 days possession after close of escrow for free.
Wow.
She had a house that she, was living in currently. She didn't need to sell it. Like she was literally and so she just wanted her friend to have everything. And so she took her time, and with reluctancy, she accepted the offer. And so we get through, and so that part was all fine. She was still like really uneasy about it. She didn't want to do it. And we get the preliminary title report. Here's where you come in. Okay.
It's coming back to me.
Yeah. We get the prelim, and they have a loan on the property. They only owe like $8,000 on it, like something silly. And she asked me even before we put it on the market, should I pay off the house? I just, no, just leave it alone. Escrow will pay it off. It'll probably just, with the time that it records and all that kind of stuff, it may just cause an issue and delaying everything. So just leave it alone. Right. So there's a lien recorded on the property for their loan. And there's another lien recorded on the property for a different loan that they took out in like 2001 or something like that. So what happened was that they had the house built in 2000, took out a construction loan to have the house built, and then when the house was finished, they converted it and refinanced it to another loan with Home Valley Bank. See, we're back at Home Valley Bank here.
There we go.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, okay.
So they refinanced it with Home Valley Bank and this other loan, and then Wells Fargo bought the loan from Home Valley Bank, but never reconveyed the deed.
Right.
So for anybody that's not watching, reconveying the deed is when one bank sells it to another bank, the bank has to release and record all that stuff. So they do that, and then they, reconvey another deed in the name of Wells Fargo and all that kind of stuff. So they have to reconvey this deed, but they never did it. And this is like pre-mortgage crisis, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so this deed was still recorded on this property and never got released. And then what happened to Home Valley Bank in 2009 and 2010 in the mortgage crash? Uh-huh. They went away. They closed shop, right? They did. And so, and then of course, Wells Fargo is this massive conglomerate, bank, mortgage company. And so this thing was recorded on there. And so it delayed escrow for like a month and a half. We were supposed to close in 2 weeks. It delayed it another 6 weeks while we searched for proof that Wells Fargo paid off that original deed. Mm-hmm. It came down to Brenda was on the phone with my client, bleep, Brenda.
Pixelated.
Yeah. So the seller, you don't have to bleep that out. It's fine. But she got on the phone with Wells Fargo and was talking to them, and they're like, well, we don't do this and we don't do that. It's very confusing, and they have to go back into their records and all this kind of stuff. Right. And so it eventually, it took me going into Isaiah's office, which is the manager of First American Title at this point. Mm-hmm. It went into his office, and we were on the phone with Wells Fargo for over 2 hours, talking to this rep, trying to work our way around it. And eventually we figured it out. Mm-hmm. We found what we needed in order for First American to release the deed and move on. Mm-hmm. So it was a wild process, but it was just and just, I didn't do anything wrong in that whole thing. If anything, I made it happen with Isaiah and the other escrow officer. We all anyway, but she was so irritated with me at the end of that thing. She thought it was all my fault. Yeah. Or I don't know if she thought it was my fault, but she was just, I think she was just frustrated with the process. And I hate that feeling, because our goal is to make the process so simple that it's so stress-free and so awesome that they, that they just leave super happy, right? And refer us to all their friends and family.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
But sometimes it just doesn't.
Yeah, and sometimes it has nothing to do with us. We do our best to try and avoid that.
Right.
But it was just, do you remember that? I came into your office and I was like, do you have any suggestions on how to do this?
I tried to give you some. I think I was going through some papers the other day, and I think I saw the contact for Wells Fargo. Yeah. Oh, I probably I remember that. I think that's when I found that.
And your Rolodex that you've had for 20 years?
Yeah. I still have a paper one. I can't get rid of it. It doesn't have real estate on my desk anymore. I put it in the drawer, but I was in it today. Oh, yeah. Where is that? Yeah.
I still have paper files.
Oh, yeah.
Don't. Yeah, it's fine. It's good. So can you give us a little bit of background color on that, on potentially from the title standpoint of it? We understand the liability and not being able to release it because there was still that lien on there, but at some point I'm assuming the attorneys have to get involved and say, hey, we're willing to take on the risk based on the information that we had, because that was actually the resolution, correct, Daniel?
It was an option, but that would have delayed it even longer because they would have had to go to their legal team and do all that kind of stuff, and I didn't want that. So I pretty much I sat in Isaiah's office, and I'm like, we're calling her right now. And he's like, and I love Isaiah, and Isaiah and I are really good friends. He's like, all right, Daniel, let's do it. And so
Isaiah just hangs his head in shame, closes his door, says, all right, sure. Yeah. So anyways, on that, from the consumer side and all of that, can you help explain why the nameless seller, even though you said her name, why that needed to be done to protect her?
Yeah, and so that's the part of why you get title insurance, is that because, she knew that she had paid off this loan. But the reason why you get a title report is because it's a public record. It keeps track to make sure that, if there was a balance owed, that it does get paid. So it's, that's part of that clear title. You want to make sure, and when you do pay off a loan, you want to make sure that paid in full letter or that reconveyance gets recorded to show that, it's been taken care of. So, there's all kinds of surprises that pop up on title reports, and that's the reason why you get title insurance. Sellers, if you inherit a property, the previous owners, they may have taken out a loan, or, we see all kinds of stuff. People don't want to go to an attorney to get advice or to prepare the correct documents. They do it on their own. That's another interesting scenario. So that's what our role is to make sure, that we take a look at all those recorded documents and say, okay, this is what we need. And some files they're quite interesting. You have to follow up and make sure, because you want to take care of it when you want to take care of it as soon as possible, because you don't want it to keep going on and on. And so there are vehicles. So like say in this situation, say if you weren't able to get somebody to Wells Fargo, we always do have a little bit of an area where, we can talk to legal, and, we always look for different ways. Okay, well, this isn't working. What else can we do? So there's always things going on behind the scenes in our office where we run into issues, and if it's not easily solvable, or if previous parties are deceased, there's different protocols into place, and we have legal counsel, and sometimes it comes down to it's a risk-based decision. Do we feel comfortable insuring this property? Do we think that this previous trust deed was paid? What we're dealing with now, past couple years, is just a lot of fraud. There's a lot of fraud, a lot of fraudulent notaries, fraudulent reconveyances being recorded. So there's a lot of things in the industry that are starting to show up, and so it's changing how we process title. Yeah.
With that being said, where do you think the future of title and escrow is going in that regard?
Well, I think because everything has been, for like the past 120 years, a lot of we have title plants. And so everything has been, for the past 100 years, for sure, a lot of, written documentation. So there's really great, title plants are, it's just massive hubs of information. So, I think it's going to become more automated. Is what I think. I think
more
it's
on the title side or the escrow side.
Probably both. I think you see like in lender, with like e-signing of loan docs and certain things. I think that's the thing, is to try to get away from paper and to try to streamline it a little bit.
It's kind of the same way the rest of the world's going.
Yeah.
Nothing different there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I still think there's a segment of the population. So even though we're digitizing so many things and we're trying to get away from that, I still think there's locations of the United States that definitely are more geared towards human interaction, right? For a lot of those things, you're never going to switch everybody over to Teledoc. I don't care what you tell me. It's never going to happen. There's a certain segment of the population that needs to go see their doctor eye to eye. Yeah. I think real estate agents, lenders, escrow, it's going to shrink, no question about it, because the bigger metropolitan areas are going to go into strictly digital. But I still think that there's going to be that sought-after few that are going to want to still see, or the people that are seeking those individuals where they could see eye to people. I don't think it's going to go away.
I hope not. It's that I think we learned in 2020 that personal interaction is super important.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I hope that doesn't change. Yeah. I mean, what changes would you like to see in the real estate industry?
I don't know.
Yeah.
What about your industry particular? I mean, you can bag on real estate agents all you want in a minute, but, particular in your industry, what changes would you like to see?
I haven't really given it a lot of thought. It changes. It changes from year to year. I look back from when I started. I was telling you a little bit about that. When I started in title and escrow, loan document packages were not emailed to be printed. Okay, they were overnighted, and then they signed, and you overnighted them back. Yeah. So it was kind of like, we're used to write a check. You had a little float time. You would write a check, and then, I wrote a check. I have a couple of days before it's going to hit my account. So that was when when the docs came in, you had a little bit of like a, travel time, so you had a little bit of time to fit everything in. Right. And so what I've seen with the industry, well, now everything it's emailed, or you go in and you grab the docs, and everything is so much more instantaneous. You don't have that float time anymore, right. So it's changed that way.
And people have lost their patience in that regard too, haven't they? Like they want everything instantly. It's a little ridiculous. We've talked about that a lot. What's that?
Damn you, Amazon.
Yeah, damn you, Amazon. Yeah. No, everybody wants things instantly, and it's just I going back to changes that I'd like to see in the real estate industry. I think people need to chill out. Honestly, they need to just relax. You can't call somebody and scream at them on the phone because it didn't happen as fast as you wanted it to.
Yeah.
Like, there are agents out there, and I know we're recording this and this going out to the world, but you cannot do that. You cannot call yourself a professional real estate broker or professional anything and just go scream at somebody. If you want to be a professional screamer, then go to the UFC. You can go and talk trash to somebody else. You'll get your teeth kicked in,
Yeah.
which is probably why people don't do it. But people need to just relax.
Well, some of the most successful people that I've seen in the industry are people that I haven't really seen. They don't take on the transference of emotion. Their clients may be emotional, but they don't take it on.
Right.
And what they do is that they just remain calm, and then they come out, okay, this is the issue or this is the problem. What are the options that we have? What can we do? They sit, they call you, they talk about it. And they don't transfer their client's energy onto you. They just, okay, this is what we have, this is what we can, these are the options that we have, and then they just work with that. Or we talk it out. And that's some of the most successful people I've seen in the industry they're just phenomenal negotiators, communicators, just
Even keel.
what I've seen. Yeah.
I think that you said it right with the negotiating and all that. I mean, that makes a difference if you preemptively let them know, hey, this may not happen on Friday like we thought it would. Be prepared to go in and sign on Monday.
Yeah, that's that honesty piece. Yeah.
Okay, that's not a big deal. Then if you wait till Friday and then it doesn't happen and you don't let them know, they're gonna get pissed.
Yeah, or they'll call their clients and be like, "You're not going to believe this shit. Like, this escrow officer Vanessa at First American Title just said that we're not going to close until Monday, so you're not going to be able to do your movers and blah blah blah." And they just they rile up their people.
Yeah.
It's just like, what's wrong with just like, hey, exactly what you're saying. Hey, we may have a delay. I'm just going to give you a heads up.
Be prepared.
Be prepared for it.
Right.
Let's figure out a solution.
I do have to say, though, as a lender and giving out timeframes and guidelines and stuff like that, I no longer can give a window to people. So before, again, doing this for a long time, I would say, hey, here's kind of best case. My voice just cracked. Greg Grady there. So best case scenario, we're looking at this, realistic here, and then kind of a worst case scenario would be this time frame. People only hear that first number and they throw out the rest, which is really sad. And I'll say, well, okay, I apologize. We talked about these 3 different scenarios. I was just being realistic with you on that. I know, but you said the 18th.
Yeah.
I apologize for ever saying the 18th, and I will never say it again. I'm going to give, a realistic or worst case, because unfortunately consumers have beat that out of me, quite honestly, which is very sad because they don't know, but I'm still pushing for that best date option. Always.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to tell them anymore.
Yeah. So the thing that I would really like to share with everybody
Yes.
is that when we have to make the calls to let you know that, UPS didn't come, there is a delay, or, there is a last minute judgment that just popped up because it was recorded yesterday.
Yeah.
Trust me. We don't like making those phone calls. Okay. The best part of our job is to call you and tell you, hey, it's closed. Your clients can get the keys.
You don't have Joey. You don't have Joey make those calls for you.
Joey's got the best part of the job for sure. I know Sabrina. I'm surprised she let that go. I'm like, well, that's the best part of making the calls. Hey, it's done. So, but But like you say, just like experience and I've worked the job, I did not used to be as poised and, and confident as I used to be. It's, like you say, you go through your experiences in doing the job and you learn from it and you're like, okay, what can I do better? How can I better communicate? But, things come up. Unfortunately, they do. And us having to make those calls, it's part of our job. We wear it, you know what I mean? But that's one of the toughest things for me. I mean, it's easier now that I've been in the business for a period of time.
Yeah.
But it's hard because you don't want, how many oftentimes in life do you buy and sell a home? So it's unfortunate. You don't want the buyers and the sellers to have, this is their their 1 or 2 experiences they're going to have. Oh, well, that real estate deal, something came up at the last minute. You don't want them to have that. You strive to, like you say, you strive to have just a great transaction. Everything falls into place, but stuff comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's part of the process. That's why I've always said a good real estate broker or a good escrow officer is worth their weight in gold, because they can manage the stress. They can't prevent these kinds of things happening. They're not driving the UPS truck, They're
but they could have got the docs out 10 minutes earlier. There's always There's always that component of it, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, people will make all kinds of excuses to it. However, I do think that is the big key of being successful in this business, is being even keel and taking the emotions out of it.
Yeah.
If you can keep your clients less stressed, you're going to get more referrals. They're going to tell their friends about you, like regardless of what happens in the transaction. If you can keep the stress down,
Yeah.
they're going to appreciate you.
Yeah. And I think it's key. I mean, I see it, and it's huge. It's stressful. People, I've got movers lined up, and delays they can cost people money. We get it, but just know when we call you to tell you that there's a delay, trust me, I don't like delays any more than you do. I don't like them either, because it causes stress, and I think we all care. We care about,
Of course.
the end experience for the client, and I would love to not have surprises. Let me tell you.
You don't like surprises?
Nope.
Boo.
Well, I think a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot. That's probably not the right way to put it, but I would say majority of the issues and problems that we see in transactions are actually derived by the clients. So it's sometimes telling that client to like, hey, sit on your hands. Like, we got you as a team. We're good. You don't need to be proactive on anything. We will tell you when you need to do your next steps, but they're just so excited to move forward that sometimes they do things unexpectedly that creates a problem, especially on the escrow side, unfortunately. Sending wires too early, right? When nobody's given them a number to wire, they're just like, I thought I had to send my money.
Ready to go, yes.
Cool. Who gave you the number? I don't know.
Where did you send that wire?
That's a whole nother.
Yeah, let's not get into that.
But I think it's also, you're combating that side that we're not combating as well, is you guys are also like their therapist in the whole thing, because they see you as a neutral third party, that you're getting a whole different experience than we are.
Yeah.
For sure. Even though it's a very small, from their perception, a very small window of it, you get a whole different vision than we do.
But we're the ones that take the baton at the last end of the race.
I know.
We're the ones with
Good
the baton.
or bad.
Running across, running across, we're the ones that deliver, the finish line. So, yeah.
Absolutely. How many times have you had somebody make a large purchase right before close of escrow, Dan?
So I got a funny text today.
Oh,
no. Luckily, the real estate agent, he's like, did you know he got a new truck? And took a picture with him at a truck. I said, I know you're lying to me, so we're good. But yeah, literally today, I got that text.
They were joking with you.
They were joking with me.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, definitely.
I saw a meme from the broke agent. You seen the broke agent on Instagram? Have you seen them? They just trash the real estate industry, or they just make jokes about it. And it was like the 10 things that they're thankful for. And the first one was that consumers that don't make large purchases before closing. And the other one was like sellers that leave at showings. And, like they have this whole list of it. It's pretty funny. But they're hilarious. But it's, anyway.
Yeah.
So what is one thing that most people don't know about you?
I used to train with a Muay Thai kickboxer.
In Monterey, right?
In Monterey in my early 20s.
What was his name? I forget his name.
Adam Rogers.
Adam Rogers, that's right. Yeah. So I knew Adam also.
Yeah.
So terrible, sad story. So Adam was a Muay Thai kickboxer, champion fighter. I don't know. Have I ever told you this story? No. With your karate background? So this guy was like fought professionally. He was like
phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
We would watch him train. Oh my gosh. He was a real deal.
Robin knows the difference between like a professional fighter and somebody who takes kickboxing classes is a big difference. Yeah. Adam was also a little bit of a daredevil, and he had a motorcycle, and he was driving down Highway 1, coming back from Big Sur, and he hit a wild boar on his motorcycle, and he was paralyzed from the neck down. And I knew him because I worked with him in an adapted PE department at Monterey Peninsula College. That was one of my early jobs when I was fresh out of college, is I worked in adapted physical education, and it was for people with disabilities, and he was hands down the most severe. I mean, because he could hardly hold himself up. But I mean, people with cerebral palsy, and there was this other kid that was my age that got in an accident when he was coming back from a friend's house, and same kind of thing, quadriplegic, like the whole thing. But it's been a long time, but Adam was a super funny guy. Like, he's had trouble speaking and all that kind of stuff, but that was really sad. But
Yeah, it's
Did
like-
you ever get to meet him before his accident?
No.
Oh my gosh. He was so enigmatic. I mean, he would engage you just from the moment that you started talking to him. I mean, and just as a trainer, you would take his classes. He was just, kind of like the drill sergeant. Come on, Vanessa. You know what I mean? He would just like get in your face.
Yeah.
And so it tied into, that's when I was a collector at the credit union.
Wow.
Talk about learning about stress relief and you know what I mean? So, but
Yeah.
3 days a week. I mean, in his classes, if you didn't get there early, you didn't get in.
Wow.
He built that gym. I mean, it was like, he trained and he would be in the ring, we would be in class hitting on the bag and he'd be over in the ring training and everybody was just like staring like, oh my gosh. I mean, just phenomenal. I mean, he was just a great athlete, but his personality too, he was just so enigmatic. I mean,
Yeah.
he was very unique individual.
He always had a really great attattitude when he came into class, and he'd
yeah.
always try to do way more than he was supposed to. He's like,
yeah.
I can walk. I'm like, I can't fucking walk.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, his will
Yeah.
and his spirit.
Yeah.
He was just a can-do. He did not want to hear. You did not walk into his gym.
Yeah.
You do not walk in here and you say you cannot.
Yeah.
That is not in the vocabulary.
So
Yeah.
the funny thing about him is that he actually sued the city of Monterey, or maybe it was Monterey County or something. He sued the government,
Wow.
and he won.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't a bore crossing sign on Highway 1. No shit. Seriously.
Was now on Carmel Valley Road? Were the bore signs on Carmel Valley Road?
It was Highway 1. It
So it
was
was Highway
it was like
1.
right
Okay.
by the Carmel River Bridge. Like it was a little
Okay.
further down from that, like that stretch from Monastery Beach
Okay.
to I think it was in that area.
Okay.
And they didn't have any warnings for wild boar,
Right.
and he actually won. And so that's like he's a millionaire because he got all this money from his accident. But
Sure, he'd probably not have gone through the accident.
Yeah.
yeah, what's
Yeah.
that?
I'm sure he'd probably rather not gone through the accident.
Oh, 100%. But
100%. Yeah, he
but
would trade it. But oh my god.
I always think about him when. Have you heard that skit online where it's the lady's like, "Oh, you need to put a deer crossing sign," or is it? It's a spoof, but it's. Have you seen that? She's like, how are the deer supposed to know that they can cross the road if there's not a deer crossing sign there? And like she calls into the radio station, they're like, what? They're just
wow.
like laughing. But anytime I
Right.
see like a deer crossing sign or like a crossing for like any animal crossing, I think about him because
Yeah.
there is a wild boar crossing sign in that location because of him.
the
Because of him,
lawsuit.
yeah.
Because of him. Yeah, they
Wow.
put a sign up.
I just learned not to mess with Vanessa. So
Yeah.
I heard all that stuff about Adam.
Yeah.
But now, why don't you lead off with that to real estate agents? Be like, I know Muay Thai,
yeah.
bitch.
Secrets out now.
Did,
Yeah.
Your
did you
check will
ever?
be here on Monday, not today.
Oh yeah.
Have you thrown a kick in 20 years?
I have a
That's the
I have a
second
bag
last.
hanging in my garage.
Yeah.
And yeah,
You use it?
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I need to do it more than I do, but that was the reason why I got it, because it was the best workout ever. I mean, you talk about stress reliever. I mean, an hour after his class, you would walk out, you were just
Empowered.
you empowered, slept like, oh man, you get home, showered, done.
Yeah.
It was done.
Do you know Robin's a black belt?
I did not know Robin was a black belt.
Yeah.
Wow.
I did some Muay Thai. Yeah.
Did you?
I've done a lot of different martial arts.
Yeah.
30 some years.
Wow. Nice. Do you still do it?
Not as much as I should.
Yeah. Well, I have a bag in my garage.
I do too. Mine's not hanging though.
It's on the floor.
Next to my jujitsu mats.
Yeah.
They're not on the floor
Wow.
actually. That's ironic.
They're folded up against the wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Little known fact about Robin is he can kick your ass too.
Well, we'll see.
Ooh, all right.
Muay Thai is nothing to mess with.
Yeah.
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 No,
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu is where it's at though. You get them on the ground. If you know jiu-jitsu, you can pretty much win anything fight, I think.
Especially if you're little.
Yeah.
It takes away the big guy.
Yeah.
Component. I'm going to
Yeah.
get into jujitsu.
Yeah.
That's going to be my.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan always says, like, if you do something strenuous or hard, then the rest of your life becomes easy. I think that's the importance of somebody doing something, like those individuals that get angry at us or, have all of those pent up aggression. Like retirees and people with nothing to do all day, I think are probably our hardest clients across the board.
Yeah.
But I just don't think they go through any struggles throughout the day. So the biggest struggle that they have is whatever's facing them in a transaction.
Yeah.
So I wish everybody would do that. Is just like do something that's super hard every day and then the rest of your day becomes easier. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's 1,000% true.
agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this has been fun. This is really cool. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
I have
absolutely.
one more escrow story to finish us off.
Okay.
So, you know this story. I've told you this story, but I just think we need to get it out into the world because you talked about reading the room
Yes.
and knowing what was going on.
Yeah.
So mid to late 2020, I'm in an escrow signing with some of my most difficult clients I've ever had. And we're going to an escrow signing. We're finally closing on this property with some of my most difficult clients I've ever had. And at that time, they were doing like notaries instead of the escrow officers doing the signing. They were having people come in and do this stuff. And so there was this random notary that was in there doing the escrow signing. And my clients are masked, very COVID conscious. And we walk into the room and they had the plexiglass shields up, and we walk into the room and she's like, I'm just going to move this plexiglass shields, and picks it up and puts it on the floor, like not even knowing who her clients are. And my clients are kind of like, it's a little strange, but they're like, it's okay. We're masked. We're vaxxed. We're good. And she's like, well, I'm not vaxxed and I don't ever plan to be. And I just remember like putting my head in my hands like, oh my God. It's like, oh my God, lady, are you serious? And I remember they looked at me like, who is this lady? And I'm like, oh my God.
I didn't choose her, I swear.
Yeah. This guy, like, he was so tough. Like, I don't know if I've ever had anybody that tough. And I thought he was going to strangle me. I thought he was going to strangle her. So anyway. Read the room, people.
Yes. It's important to know your audience. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Any closing thoughts?
This was fun.
Cool.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was your tequila? It's water now.
It is. It's tequila? I don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't drink tequila. Awesome. Gentlemen?
All right. Kudos.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good?
Yep.
All right. That's a wrap.
All right.
Cool.